I would like to introduce Joan Tollefson, is a lifelong explorer of the ever-changing, ever-present living reality here now. Her bare-bones approach is open, direct, immediate, down-to-earth, and rooted in the ever-fresh aliveness of present, experiencing an aware presence. Joan's main teacher was Tony Packer, a former Zen teacher who left the tradition behind to work in a simpler and more open way. Joan holds meetings and is the author of 5 books: Death, the End of Self-Improvement, Nothing to Grasp, Painting the Sidewalk with Water, Talks and Dialogues about Nonduality, Awaken the Heartland, The Ecstasy of What Is, and Bare Bones Meditation, Waking Up to the Story of My Life. Joan is a rare gem, my new friend. I enjoyed talking to her. Her raw honesty is refreshing, and I've just finished reading some of her books. So thank you, Joan. I'm going to pass the stage to you, Joan. Everyone, welcome Joan.
Hello. Can you hear me? Is it working? I guess so.
Yes, it's working.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Hi, Emerson. It's great to be here. And well, what I point to is not about philosophy or a belief system of any kind. It's about direct, immediate experiencing here and now. And it's about exploring this and enjoying this and being this. And it's not about getting anywhere or attaining anything or fixing anything or becoming anything. It's about what's right here, right now, just as it is. And when we tune into the bare actuality of this moment, and by the bare actuality, I just mean the sensory, energetic actuality before interpretations, just hearing, seeing, breathing, sensing, just the bare actuality of this moment. When we tune into that, what do we notice? And one thing we notice is that everything is changing. In fact, as they say in Zen, impermanence is so thoroughgoing that there really is no impermanence, because nothing ever really forms to even be impermanent. The flux is that thoroughgoing. So, of course, some things like houses and mountains are changing very slowly and we don't notice it, but actually at the subatomic level, it's constantly changing. And we are constantly changing from one instant to the next. Our experience is changing, our thoughts are changing, our sensations are changing. What our mind is paying attention to, the focus of attention is changing and shifting. So we notice that there's continuous, thoroughgoing change. And yet at the same time, we notice that everything is always immovably right here, right now, in this immediacy, this presentness. And it never departs from this. Even though it's always moving, it never goes anywhere other than right here, right now. So that's kind of interesting. And we also notice that there's infinite variation, that anything we pay attention to, a sensation, an apparent object, a thought, anything, an emotion, anything we pay attention to, if we really just deeply open to it, it's infinite. It goes on, it has no end, it's infinite. So on the one hand, there's infinite variation, shapes, colors, sensations, forms, infinite variation. And yet at the same time, it's all showing up as one whole, undivided, seamless happening. The same way that in a movie, there are all kinds of different shapes and colors and forms and characters and everything else, but it's all appearing as one moving picture, one whole movie. And it's the same way with what's right here, right now. It's one whole seamless happening. So we can notice that. And we can notice that there's no inside or outside in our actual experience. If we simply look for where the boundary is between what we think of as inside me and what we think of as outside me, we don't actually find a boundary. We can't really find a place where inside turns into outside. Is my hand inside me or outside me? Is it inside you or outside you? We can't really say. Is this voice inside you or outside you? We can't really say. There's no division really between inside and outside, or between one apparent thing and another. We can't really separate anything out from everything that it supposedly is not, because everything is in some way made up of everything else, and there aren't any real actual boundaries. And we also notice, if we pay attention to how decisions and choices happen, we can notice that they're happening by themselves. We notice that if we're trying to make a decision, there are conflicting thoughts: do this, no, do that, do this, no, do that. And we're not making these thoughts happen. They're just happening. They're popping up. And all of a sudden, we've apparently decided, and we can't make that decisive moment happen any sooner than it does. It's all an amazingly spontaneous happening. And when we look for the me, when we look back to see, well, who is speaking? Who is saying this? If I turn my attention back to who is saying these words, I don't find anything. They're just coming out. And who is hearing them? Look and see, is there anyone there? All we ever find when we look for the me is thoughts, mental images, sensations, ever changing, a stream of things like that. But when we look, there's really no me back there. So in a way, I am nothing at all, and I am everything, just like the name of the conference. I am nothing and I am everything. And of course, in the movie of Waking Life, I am also appearing as Joan, as this particular character. And we can't deny that aspect of reality. Reality, this living reality, seems to have infinite different dimensions. And it's very important, I think, not to fixate or get stuck on any particular dimension or perspective. So we can't dismiss everyday, ordinary life. But at the same time, when we actually pay attention to it at the level of just bare experiencing, we can't really find any of the things we think are there. We can't really find me or you or the world situation or this or that. So that's interesting. And if we pay attention to what's happening, we can also notice habitual thought patterns that pop up. For example, I noticed on my first all-day sitting at the Zen Center years ago that every thought I was having was about the future. And I'd never seen that before. And it was like, wow, this is really amazing. Every thought is about the future. And that pattern didn't disappear magically. But from that moment on, the light was turned on. And whenever I'd be caught in thinking about the future, I would see that. Maybe not right away, but eventually I would notice it. And I began to notice how seductive that pattern of thinking was, and also how it was actually painful. And at some point, probably a decade later, not in any kind of big flash, but just one day, my friend, teacher, Tony Packer, asked me what I was going to do when my mother died, because I'd moved to Chicago to be with my mother at the end of her life. And Tony said, what are you going to do after she dies? And I had this moment of like, wow, I haven't been thinking about it, how unlike me. So that pattern had kind of disintegrated, not in a big explosive moment, but just gradually. So one of the things when we just pay attention to what's happening is that we notice these habitual patterns and the kind of headlines and thought patterns that our particular personality churns out, like, I'm never going to get it, I'm a failure, I've ruined my whole life, or you ruined my life, or this shouldn't be happening, or whatever our patterns are. So in seeing those, they begin to lose their grip and their believability. And at the same time, we can notice that thought, when we just pay attention to thought as a kind of sensory energetic phenomena, just at the level of sensory energetic texture, when we give attention to thought in that way, well, we find that it's incredibly ephemeral. It's like this little burst of what? I don't know, this little burst, and it's gone almost, well, as soon as it arises, it's just poof, it's gone. And it's like nothing. And yet it has this amazing ability to create this whole movie or story in the imagination that seems incredibly real and believable. So thought, and of course in many meditation traditions, we're kind of trained, if you will, to see thought as the enemy or the problem, like we're trying to get rid of thought, which is what many people seem to be trying to do in meditation. But as I use the word meditation, and I don't actually like that word because it means so many different things, but as I mean it, it's just being here, sort of, putting away all our usual busyness and activities and speaking and phones and everything else, and just being here and tuning into what's happening and not trying to manipulate it or control it in any way, but just allowing it to be however it is. And just noticing how it is, exploring how it is, enjoying how it is. And so thoughts will arise and dissipate, and that's just one of the many things that's happening in this moment. And so as I see it, nothing is excluded from whatever this is, or it's not about finding one thing and getting rid of everything else. Nothing is excluded, everything is included. To me, spirituality, and I use these words like non-duality and spirituality because I don't know any others, but I don't really kind of like any of them in a way. But to me, spirituality isn't like, doesn't mean some woo-woo thing or spirit as opposed to matter or anything like that. Everything is spiritual. The toilet is spiritual. The freeway is spiritual. The traffic jam is spiritual. Everything is spiritual in the way I mean it. And maybe the word spiritual, it just helps to notice the sacredness of everything, and helps us to see it that way. Because everything, if you really see it, is enormously amazing and beautiful. I mean, things that we just think are nothing, like, an old piece of Kleenex. If you really start looking at this, it has amazing shapes and patterns and shadow and light. You look at a glass of water and it has all kinds of light and reflections, and anything is like that. These ordinary things that we take for granted. We don't have to be looking at the Grand Canyon. Everything is amazing. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't really love these words like awakening and enlightenment and all that. I sometimes use them, but to me, personally, I've never had any sort of big explosive moment when everything dramatically changed and, I was a mess, and then suddenly I had this big moment, and afterwards everything has been nothing but bliss. I mean, that has not been my experience. And I know some people do have big moments, but the thing is, any experience that we have is going to be transitory. Experience by its very nature is just gone, right, like that. So, and often in the spiritual world, we get sort of caught in having some experience of expansion or boundlessness or whatever, and then it seems like that goes away. It doesn't really go away. What happens is the story of me or whatever is sort of occupies the attention, and then we think we've lost it, and we start trying to get back to that experience. And so that's just kind of a fool's errand as I see it. This isn't about having any particular experience or staying in any particular state or anything like that. It's just exploring and enjoying and being this as it is right now, right here, just as it is, ever changing and yet always right here. And as I see it, it's not about seeking something or, trying to attain something. It's really, it's an exploration, and it's an exploration that has no end. Often these words like enlightenment and awakening seem to suggest some kind of finish line that we're going to cross. And I think that's a very misleading idea. I don't think there's a finish line. At least I haven't found one. And, to me, it's a continuously unfolding, ever new, ever surprising, ever fresh aliveness right here, right now. And the other thing about these words like awakening and enlightenment and so on is that we often tend to think of taking them personally, like I am enlightened or I'm not enlightened yet. But as is often said, there is no enlightened person. If the word has any meaning at all, it's the recognition that there really is no separation. There's nobody here separate from everything else to get enlightened. And there's no permanent state called enlightenment that this imaginary me is going to get into and then stay in forever. That's what is seen through. The seeing through that might be described as enlightenment, but better to just let those words go, as far as I'm concerned, and just be right here, right now. And, I don't see this as a practice. I see it as an enjoyment, as an exploration. And in no way am I saying that we should somehow try to spend every moment or as much time as possible just being with bare sensations and that sort of thing, and that we shouldn't, think or fantasize or watch a movie or anything else. And that's not what I'm saying at all, because I love to watch movies, and, I talk to myself all the time. I actually pretend sometimes that I'm little different characters and I have imaginary dialogues. I mean, really. I think I'm someone crazy, but anyway, so I'm not saying, this doesn't dismiss anything. This includes absolutely everything. And I noticed that you've appeared on my screen now, Emerson, which, hello, I love
I've been here all the time.
Oh, well, I couldn't see you. All I could see was
I just noticed that. Noticed that. I was like, someone messaged me, we can't see you, but earlier. And I'm like, what's going on?
I felt like I was speaking into the void or something.
and I was giving you like smiling and making expressions, and I was
Yeah. Well, anyway, there you are. And I'm just so happy to have met you, Emerson, because I feel like you're a new friend and I've really enjoyed our conversations and everything. So I don't know, that maybe that's enough for me to kind of give as an introduction, and then maybe you want to ask something or say something.
Yeah.
or whatever you want to do next.
Well, likewise, Joan. It was great meeting you, and we just chatted and chatted and chatted. We can do it for hours.
Uh-huh.
And, maybe we'll do a marathon one day.
Yeah.
And I like this talk that we had off camera.
Yeah.
There's a question here. Your Facebook posts often seem scared of Trump and the future with him as a president. Have you noticed that pattern? How is he separate or outside of you? Isn't all this political drama not really happening? This is from anonymous attendee.
Okay. Well, I would say that everything is myself in the larger sense, including Trump, including everything. And in the same way that I was saying earlier, that nothing can really be pinned down. We can't really pin down Donald Trump either, or any other person for that matter. I mean, he is, like all of us, an ever-changing phenomena that's inseparable from everything else in the whole universe. And to me, non-duality doesn't mean that we no longer have opinions or preferences or, ideas about anything. I mean, that's some people's idea of spirituality or non-duality, that you become, completely neutral about everything or something. But that's not my idea of it, and it's certainly not my experience of it. And I have a lot of opinions. And, what I notice is that we don't really get to choose what our opinions are going to be. Like, I notice that all of us depend on a great deal of secondhand information. Like, really, for almost everything we have an opinion on, from climate change to vaccines to Donald Trump to, everything, almost everything. We depend, the coronavirus, everything. We depend on secondhand information. And so we all seem to trust different sources of information. And what I've noticed is we don't get to choose which sources we find trustworthy. I can't make myself, believe in QAnon or whatever. It's not going to happen. I mean, so it's like we have our opinions and our preferences, and we don't get to choose our preferences either. Like, I didn't get to choose my sexual orientation or my gender, identity, or you don't get to choose this stuff. And so I don't like Donald Trump. Now, if I knew him personally, I might, he might be a really nice guy. I don't know. And, he's done a few things that I have agreed with, or said a few things along the way that I've agreed with or liked. But mostly I find him very troubling and very disturbing. And, I plan to vote for Joe Biden, even though he wasn't my first choice. But and to me, that's all included. But perhaps what I have noticed is that I don't really know what's best for the universe. I think that's one of the things that we sort of maybe awaken to, is that, yes, we have opinions, but we don't really know what's best for the universe. And I often remind people of the old Chinese farmer story, which I think everyone knows, that we don't really know, what will lead to what. So I don't know if that answers it, but that's my response.
Thank you for that response, Joan. There's a question from Richard. Hi, Joan. Did your recent illness amp up the future thinking pattern? From Rick.
No, quite the opposite. I mean, the future thinking pattern disappeared many years ago, as I said earlier. When I was living in Chicago, I noticed that it just wasn't happening anymore. Not to say I never, ever think about the future, but I don't obsess about it the way I did for years. So no, of course, you have to think about the future sometimes in practical ways. You think if you have cancer, you think about what you're going to do with this treatment or that treatment and blah, 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 But no, quite the opposite. If anything, having a very serious cancer woke me up even more to the preciousness of what's right here, right now. And old age does this too. I'm 72, which isn't that old, but it's getting up there. And it wakes you up because you realize death is right up there, and so it actually made me much more appreciative of everything as it is, and the simplest things. And so, yeah.
More questions here, Joan. This is from Harvey. Harvey asks, do you teach Zen from a framework of the person accomplishing Kensho or Satori, or do you teach it from a non-dual perspective in which there is nothing to accomplish? In other words, a seeing of what is. That's a good question.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I wouldn't describe myself as a Zen teacher or even as a teacher. I'm not fond of the word teacher. My quote unquote teacher, Toni Packer, was a former Zen teacher who left Zen, and she didn't like the teacher word. She felt that thinking in terms of teachers and students, or as we often do in the satsang world, seekers and finders, she found that very divisive and felt that it created a false separation. So I don't really I sometimes use the word teacher just in practical ways, but I don't really think of myself as a teacher or as a Zen teacher. I mean, I resonate very much with Zen, or with what the the original teachings of Zen as I have heard them and understood them. And I've worked with a number of Zen teachers like Steve Hagen and Mel Weitzman and so on, and John Tarrant. And the kind of Zen that I was involved in years ago was Soto Zen, where they don't talk about Kensho or Satori or all that. You know, it's just being here, really, just sitting, or just being here. So the Zen I encountered did not emphasize any kind of big Kensho experience or anything like that. And it was really just about being aware of what is. And so that's my emphasis, as I said earlier, you know. And now, you know, this is like everything. You can't really put this living reality into any kind of conceptual framework. So all of these pointers, like no choice or no self or nothing to attain, they're all pointers, but you can't get stuck on them, because, yeah, in a way you could say there is, you know, if there are things that seem to have, I mean, yes, there is sort of a seeming journey or process over apparent time. And, you know, things do seem to change and evolve and maybe get better in some ways, or, you know, whatever. And there's the appearance of making a choice. And, you know, we it's kind of how we function is through that what one neuroscientist called the neurological sensation of making a choice, you know. So all of these pointers, you know, they point to something, but we need not fixate on them. And because, you know, there's a great Zen koan where the Zen master and his student have gone to perform a funeral or something, and the student bangs on the coffin and says, "Dead or alive?" And the Zen master says, I won't say. And it's kind of like, you know, you can't really say ultimately what anything is. And yet we talk. I mean, because that's part of what's happening, what's part of what the universe is doing with us, through us. So, you know, we say things, but it's important to see that nothing we say, no description, no concept, no interpretation of this is the actuality. Like the old saying, the map is not the territory. Maps are helpful, and mapping is something that this whole totality is doing, but the map is not what it represents. You know, just as the word is not what it represents. The word water is not water. So I don't know, that's my response.
That was brilliant. Thank you. I really like that. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Shazam. Okay, just keep going. I better ask questions, so I'm going to tone it down with this question. Norman Cohen, enjoyed your book on death. That's a really good book.
Oh, thank you.
Any thoughts about near-death experiences and the afterlife and reincarnation?
Well, as I said in the book, I'm not a believer in any of that. I mean, I believe that near-death experiences are real experiences, but I'm dubious about whether they really happen after the person has really died. They're near death, not death. Reincarnation, I think, is a misunderstanding of what I understood the Buddha to be teaching. You know, I don't think to me, that's a kind of idea like heaven and hell that, you know, you feed to the masses or something, but it's not the subtle real teaching or something. I don't think there's anything here. I can't find anything solid, persisting entity in here who would reincarnate into some new life. So no, I don't think there's reincarnation. Now that doesn't mean that does everything end at death? Well, no, because whatever this whole thing is, it has no beginning and no end, and you can't separate this apparent form called Joan from everything that's not Joan. So in that sense, there's no end. But and I would also say that, I don't know what happens after death. I haven't died yet. So, so, I might be surprised, as I said in the book, I might find myself, going down a long tunnel towards the white light, or plunging down into hell or something, it might happen. So, but that's not what I'm expecting. I'm expecting death to be very much the same thing as going to sleep at night or going under anesthesia. Every time I go under anesthesia, I'm aware, I can feel that I'm losing consciousness, and the thought comes up every time I go under anesthesia. In fact, I say it out loud usually. I say, here I go. and, where do you go under anesthesia, or who is there to go somewhere? I mean, there's something that remains in deep sleep, and there's an awareness in deep sleep, because if the alarm goes off, we hear it. But what's there after death? Does consciousness, is this one universal consciousness that, we get into a lot of theories and ideas there, which I'd rather just stay with the simplicity of what's actually here, than because, what is consciousness? What is it? And so, I mean, on the one hand, it's our most obvious, immediate experience, and yet you try to get hold of it. And what is it? What is it? And is there a boundary between it and everything that's appeared? What is it? So, so I'm not a big believer in the afterlife or any of that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that answer. Brilliant. I've read your books. This is from Norman.
Okay.
You reveal so much about yourself. Is this therapeutic for you? Is it a part of your path to lay it all out there? Does it help awakening?
Well, all I can say is it's what I do. And again, what I notice is that we don't really choose what we do. I mean, I didn't sit down and think about, I think I'll write books and I think I'll reveal a lot of things about myself. That's just kind of what has happened. And in fact, for a long time, I was trying not to do that, because I had the idea, that this sort of non-dual idea that as no self, that your personality, your personal life was all sort of spiritually inferior and not really non-dual and better dispensed with. And so, I really envied all these teachers who were, just speaking from the absolute and, blah, blah, blah. And here I was writing about, ostomy bags and, the nitty gritty stuff of life. And why couldn't I just, well, actually back then I didn't have an ostomy bag, but anyway. But the point is that at some point I just realized that, first of all, like I said, I think everything is spiritual and everything is non-dual. So I don't see it as something that excludes the so-called personal life. And the feedback I've gotten from, some people don't like it, what I write, but the feedback I've gotten, the positive feedback I've gotten, is that for a lot of people have found it very freeing to know that they're not alone, that somebody else is going through the same things that they are. And that was kind of one of the interesting things for me. When I published my first book, Bare Bones Meditation, I really thought I was going to be like shunned from the human race after, the things I had revealed were read. And I thought of myself as very, very different. I mean, here I was this one-armed lesbian, living at this retreat center where I was the only gay person, one of the only women. And, I thought I was really different, really different. And after the book came out, this guy called me, and he was this guy that I thought, he used to come to retreats, and he was this guy that I thought was just the absolute opposite of me. Big, guy with straight, guy. And he calls me up and he says, "Oh, Joni, you're just like me. We're exactly the same." And I was like, wow. And then I heard that from people that, had totally different lives from me. They'd never had a thing with addiction. They weren't gay. They weren't sometimes they were men, you know, they didn't have my life experience. And they were saying that they felt like it was their story. So it kind of woke me up to how much common ground we all have, even though we sometimes feel like we're so different. And for sure, we all are absolutely, each of us is absolutely unique. And each of us has an absolutely unique path. And no two snowflakes are alike. But at the same time, there's an awful lot of common ground in what we go through as human beings. So, and is it therapeutic for me to do this? I have no idea. I mean, all I can say is it's what I do. And I'm not working on a new book, so maybe I'll never write another one. I don't know. But it just seems to be what I do.
Well, you're a brilliant writer. I really like your writing.
Thank you.
And I think Robert Saltzman said that too.
Oh,
That he's a fan of your writing. Yeah. So keep on doing it.
thank you. That's nice to hear. I love Robert.
Hi, Joan. This is from George.
Okay.
In your personal experience, what's the felt sense of pure consciousness? Is it an inside body or out? Is it off and on, or is it steady and stabilized?
I have no idea what pure consciousness would be. And as far as I can see, as I said earlier, I can't find any boundary between inside and outside. And I can't find any experience that stabilizes, that's permanent. But I've noticed that it's always here, it's always now. And you could call here now consciousness. You could call it by many different names, but you know, I notice that I can never experience anything outside of or other than consciousness. I can imagine something, but that imagining is an experience of consciousness. So, but then again, as I said earlier, you know, what is consciousness? It's kind of elusive. So, but as far as, you know, I'm not really interested in trying to have some experience of pure consciousness, and I don't even know what that would be. I mean, maybe that would be like what's there in deep sleep or something. I don't know, but I'm not there in deep sleep. You know, or at least when I say that, what I mean is this awake awareness, this experiencing is not there in deep sleep. There's no experience there. So, you know, so anyway, it's not my thing.
This is from Sailor Bob and Kat Adamson.
Oh, wow. Hi, Sailor Bob and Kat. Hi, Sailor Bob.
I love the authenticity, clarity, warmth, and depth of the message coming through you. It is beautiful. I read the first 2 books too. Bob gave me this cat. We both love them. Glad to hear there are more books. Yes, keep it on.
Thank you. Thank you. And lots of love to both of you and to Bob. I mean, Bob was a really important for me. And at the time that I ran into Bob, I was still kind of seeking some kind of enlightenment, or feeling like, you know, I wasn't quite there yet or something. And he just really dispelled that, because he didn't talk that way. You know, he was just, this is, you know, everything is it, and it's all there is. And that was very liberating. So Bob is a treasure in my life.
I love them too. They're so great. They're so great.
Really, and he came to Chicago when I was living there, and so I got to spend some time with him in person. And he's just a really genuine, humble, down to earth guy who's, you know, completely unpretentious and just a jewel.
Bob and Kat were on last night, and they were just killing it. Like double, kind of like ninja swords, kind of like flying. Mark Natelli asked, as a comment, I'm liking how you don't like using the words awakening and enlightenment. But a question, is there an absolute in your view?
Well, there's no absolute like as a thing. I think the words relative and absolute kind of are, again, like all words, they're just maps. And the absolute kind of points to the perspective that all is one, there's no separation, et cetera, et cetera. And the relative is sort of used for referring to everyday, ordinary reality. Or some people use the words differently. So again, I don't know, but what was the question again? Is there some?
I forgot already. Just a second.
I'm going senile, so things just.
Where did it? Okay. Something about the absolute. He really liked. Let me find it. It's right here. Where did it go? It disappeared.
Well, anyway, let's move on and not search for that.
Sorry.
Yeah,
the next one is, what is your view on self-importance?
Self-importance. I don't recommend it. I don't recommend self-deprecation either. I mean, I think that our society is sort of rampant with a feeling of people sort of self-hatred and feeling like we're not good enough and all that. So I certainly don't recommend that. But I don't think the antidote, that the effective antidote is self-importance. I think that but these are all things that we can see in ourselves. And if you're just paying attention to what is, you notice that sometimes we do feel superior and sometimes we feel inferior. These are kind of human things. And but I think they're illusions, because none of us really are superior or inferior. I mean, in some relative way, somebody might be a better surgeon than somebody else or something like that, or they might have, they might be a faster runner or something. But in terms of, I don't see superior, inferior people.
Thank you for that. Joan, do you have any regrets from Norman?
Regrets? Well, I could say yes, in the sense that there are certainly things that I've done that in retrospect, I wish I hadn't done, or I wish I had done differently or something. But I don't sit around consumed with regret over them. That isn't a pattern of mine that I'm particularly, that's not something I tend to get caught up in. And I think in really grokking the fact that there's no choice, that everything that happens is an impersonal happening of the whole, what comes with that is the understanding that you are expressed in every moment just as you're expressed in every moment, and you can't really be any other way. So the things that I might look back on and say, oh, oops, that was a mistake or something, that's how it was in that moment. And that's very freeing. That's been that insight, that realization has been very, very freeing for me, because and also that kind of correlates also with the Chinese farmer story, the old Chinese farmer story, that when we do make what we think is a mistake, we don't really know all the impacts of that, or if it would have been better if it hadn't happened. Like, we don't even know, like, if climate change or nuclear war or something wipes us out as a species, we don't know that that's a bad thing. I mean, we're kind of like programmed not to want that to happen. We kind of want to survive, but we don't really know. I mean, the dinosaurs probably wanted to survive, but it seems like their disappearance has not really, it's okay with us. We're not mourning the fact that the polio vaccine was wiped out, but we're quite attached to the idea that human beings should somehow survive. And of course, at some point we will die, because everything dies, every form dies. In fact, like I said earlier, it never even really forms as anything solid or persisting. So and then something new will be here. So I think I might have gotten a little off the track there, but regret. Anyway, I don't, I think if someone does have that pattern of really regretting something and getting lost in regret, it's a good pattern to notice that, and just to see, the more you see it and see through it and see the untrueness of it, the less grip it has, I would say.
Gilbert is on. He basically give you a heart. I love Gilbert's presentation too. That was Gilbert Schultz. Yeah, Gilbert. He was awesome. He opened the nothing stage, and it was just like sharp, and it was just really fun.
Oh, I love Gilbert. And I love both of his books. Well, actually, he even has an earlier book or something that he's.
Yeah, that was really good. It's like a masterpiece.
But his books are just so clear and succinct, and so yeah.
That was really, really good. Let's talk about, you have a love for movies, Joan. That I have a love for movies too. I like watching movies. What's your favorite top 3 movies?
Oh dear.
That's kind of like let's make the non-dual. I would not say non-dual, but whatever. That's related to non-dual.
Well, a lot of times a movie is my favorite movie at the moment I'm watching it, so, and I have a whole recommended movie page on my website. The top one on that page is American Beauty, which I really loved. I'm a big fan of Alan.
Yeah.
I like 6 Feet Under as well, which he did. And I just thought American Beauty was brilliant. And so that's a big favorite. And yeah, I love movies. I mean, I think it's sort of the nature of consciousness that it seems to enjoy stories. It enjoys movies. And sometimes in the spiritual world, that gets sort of pathologized, like we're supposed to not have stories or something. But I love stories. I mean, and there's different kinds of stories. There's the stories that wake us up. Like American Beauty is a story that kind of wakes you up in various ways. Whereas there's the other kind of story, like the story of, I ruined my whole life, I'm a failure. That story is suffering. So we have to discern the difference between the two. But yeah, and I've loved a lot of, I like actually a lot of TV series, because TV is an interesting medium, in that it can continue on over a longer period of time than a movie, so like I really enjoyed Orange is the New Black. I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. And then COVID happened, and I was like, I'm going to binge watch that. So good.
I'm actually watching Nurse Jackie now for the second time because I loved it so much. And it showed up on Netflix streaming, so I'm watching it again. And that's just a great show. And I don't know. Nothing's coming into my mind, but I do have a page on my website about movies.
Yeah, I really love movies, and I'm not going to give away the ending of 6 Feet Under, but wasn't that so beautifully done?
Oh, it was a powerful ending. Yeah.
Yeah,
really.
yeah. It's what is. That's what is to me. It was just
yeah.
And the song.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's not give away anymore.
Spoiler.
No. They'll kind of like George DeWitz said, Schultz is the shit. Schultz is the shit. Oh. Awesome. He is the bomb. Gilbert Schultz is awesome. Oh. Joan, in your experience, have you seen the emergence of a lot of non-duality teachers just kind of like everywhere? It's beginning to come up. We have there's so many great videos on the Void Village, you guys. If you haven't seen it yet, visit it. It's like there's like 40 videos there of up and coming speakers. Some speakers that are really, really clear and just awesome stuff. What's your comment about the kind of like there's so many non-duality teachers coming out? How was it before?
Back in the good old days when I was young. Well, it was interesting because like when I was a child, I was raised by atheist agnostics. And of course I got really into religion and really drawn to religion. And, I read a book on all the world religions, and I felt like Buddhism was the one that just grabbed me, but I didn't know any Buddhists. I mean, it was just like there wasn't Buddhism. I mean, there were a few things that had already arrived in America, but basically there wasn't, it wasn't like now where there's a Zen center on every corner or something. It wasn't. And and nobody was talking about non-duality, and I never heard of Advaita or anything, so it was like, just wasn't there back then, I mean, it might've been there for a few people here and there, but basically it was just not there. And then it all kind of exploded. Like when I was in college in the 60s, that's when Alan Watts came out with his books. And that was my introduction, along with a little Zen group that was going on at my college. And a class I took on Vedanta and Zen with Richard Clark. And then suddenly there was this big sort of explosion of Zen. Like all of a sudden there were all these new Zen centers and Zen teachers and everything. And then all of a sudden, we were hearing about all these satsang teachers and Advaita teachers. And then it seemed like non-duality showed up, like this new thing, non-duality, and people, and it's just continued to take off, and more and more and more people. And I think it's great, because I think I've gone to a lot of different teachers, and I still listen to, podcasts and videos and things, that I enjoy. And I think it's great because different people just put it in a slightly different way. They have a slightly different emphasis, and you can hear something from one person that you couldn't hear from someone else, because the way someone else said it sort of pushed your resistance button or something. And then the way this person puts it, you can really let it in. So, and of course, everyone's saying something a little bit different because all of us are unique. So, and to me, it's like, there's no end to it. It's an infinitely expanding, unfolding exploration. So, I'm always, discovering new things, or discovering what I've already discovered. Like it's kind of interesting, when I came across Steve Hagen's book, Buddhism is Not What You Think. And I came to that line that I referred to earlier, actually, about, in Buddhism, there's no impermanence because the flux is so thoroughgoing that nothing forms to be impermanent. And I thought, wow, I mean, that just had a huge impact on me. And then I went back and read my earlier books, and it was like there in my earlier books. It was like, so it's funny. It's like there are certain lessons, like this is it, that we seem to keep getting over and over and over again, maybe in, just a little more subtlety, or a little more, it seems like, maybe it's just me, I'm kind of slow, but, keep having to be hit over the head by the great cosmic Zen master who keeps showing up in multiple different forms, and so I think it's great. If there's any pitfall in it, it's that it can become sort of a new, consumer thing where people are, kind of like a giant shopping mall or something, where people are rushing around consuming. And, basically I think it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I was really surprised with this Nothing conference of how many speakers are there, and so many different varieties and so many different nuances. To me, it just looks the same. You know what I'm saying? Just nuances. There's in this conference, and there's a lot of people that are just epic, like you.
Bing.
Bing. and just so many different and I got to know so many different people, and I discovered you from Salvador Poe.
Oh yeah.
He mentioned you that from Tony Packer, and I was like, wait a second, and then I'm like, there's Joan, and then here you are with this conference. Do you have any closing comments about can you believe that we're almost there?
Time flies when you're having fun.
That's right. I was like, what? And then people are kind of like, in the other stage is over now, so you are the closing speaker.
Oh. Don't feel any pressure or anything. It was about non-duality.
So no pressure here, Joan. If you can close the conference for me. Bring it home.
Oh gosh. See, this is why I never would have been good at Zen koans, you know, like I was just like, huh? But no, I think, you know, it's just, it's so simple, really, what's being pointed to. It's so simple, and the mind gets so convoluted and trying to figure it out and, you know, make sense of it all and get somewhere and compare this person to that person and, you know, what is consciousness and is that this and what about this? And, you know, the mind is always churning out these convoluted things. But what's really being pointed to is so simple. It's just right here, right now, just this. And it's like, you can't, any label you put on it, consciousness or even just this or any label is just a label, you know? Like my friend Daryl Bailey says, you know, you could also be just saying bloopity bloop. And if we said that, it would be obvious how silly some of our conversations are. Like, do you think bloopity bloop is the ground of being, or is it flopsy bloosh? And what is floshty boops? And you know, I mean, you would see how absurd it is because we're just dealing with these sort of imaginary things, you know, and it's like, but this right here, right now is just, you can't deny it. You can't, it's just right here. It's obvious, you know, and so it's really, really simple. It's really, really simple. And all the stuff about, you know, trying to get enlightened and trying to get somewhere and trying to become something and you know, just, you know, like, you're already it. We're already it. You know, this is it. And to really just enjoy. You know, one of the things about getting old is like, it's like you realize how much time you spent trying to fix things or get away from, you know, it's just like, hey, this is your life. Just enjoy, you know, just enjoy the simple things. Enjoy taking your morning shower. Enjoy eating your dinner. Enjoy, you know, watching a movie. You don't have to figure out how the whole universe is working. And by tuning into, as I started, by tuning into just what's here, you realize you can't pin it down in any way. You can't get hold of it in any way. It just doesn't go that way. It's infinite and it's moving and it's ever fresh, and that's beautiful. And we don't have to figure it out. We are it. It's all there is, and it includes everything. Nothing is left out, even our most neurotic habits and whatever. Nothing is left out. It's all just this. How was that?
Beautifully said. Thank you so much for closing. I want to thank the great team that we have.
I would like to thank all of you because this is, you know, really great what you've done.
We have Noel, and he's just been super. Harry has just been. Did Harry call you?
He did. I didn't call him back because I knew how to use Zoom.
Okay.
He left a voicemail message.
But Harry called every single speaker and connected with them. And then Julie, epic Julie, she's just been so supportive, and she's done so much to do all of this. And I think she wants you to invite her for like lunch or something. I just saw something posted there. And then we also have Rod, that's really been amazing support, and just all throughout. We have Elvic, we have Maya, and it's just a great dream team. And when a whole bunch of non-doers kind of like put up a conference, we thought nothing was going to be achieved, and we did achieve nothing.
Yes. And now the amazing thing is nothing happened. You know, it's like,
nothing happened.
You know, it's like, where did it all go? Like, it's, of course, there's video, you know, but the video, watching the video is different because it'll be in a different moment. It's a fresh thing.
That's right. There's a lot of people that got tickets, and I think they're going to be watching this on replay or something, because it is a long stretch of time. And so people that are wondering about where they can look for the recordings. It's going to take some time because we have to, this was a big endeavor. I'm just so surprised. Well, I'm not surprised at all. It's just what's happening. It's just, everything was just gonna like, yeah, it was so great. Like, imagine not sleeping and just joking. And then just one speaker after the other, and I was eating and behind. I had some barbecue sauce on my face for a long time. I didn't even notice. That's what's happening.
Exactly.
And the conference will never end. We are thinking about different things that we're going to announce soon. So people watch out for that. Watch out for the, there's, I can't even speak about it. It's just so exciting. And this is something that is coming up really, really soon. And I can keep on talking and talking here. I think we're going to extend it for another 12 hours. Joan, do you want to do it? No, just joking. I'm hungry.
And she passed out.
And she passed out.
She's on the floor now.
Just look out for sorry, sir, go ahead.
She's on the floor in a state of pure consciousness.
That's what happened. And lost our awareness. The same thing. And we're looking forward to, we're going to announce our next stuff. Just watch out for your emails. The recordings are going to come. We have to edit them and process them because it's like 48 hours of processing. So we ask for your patience to watch out for these videos, but they'll be out. And I'm forgetting something. And I just want to say that I really loved everything that happened. All the speakers coming in and out. It's like a blur, kind of like it's just a beautiful blur. And I better sign off so that we can celebrate. Thank you so much, everyone. Mwah. Mwah. And I think I forgot something, but that's okay. We'll announce on your emails. And awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Bye-bye.